Collette Marietta. I'm wearing burgundy as a representative of the cancer I've had, which is a head and neck cancer, but specifically adenoid cystic carcinoma of the salivary gland. Well, actually, I was 17 years old. It was back in 1980, and it felt like a M&M here behind my ear. And when I went in for surgery, it was like the size of a small egg. And all of my facial nerves were wrapped inside of it, which led them to believe I was probably born with it. And typically, this type of cancer is diagnosed between the age of 40 and 60. So I'm one of the youngest. In fact, Sloan Kettering has me in a pediatric clinical trial looking at the genetics of the few of us that are way under 40. Well, I think first I have to tell kind of what I've been through, if you don't mind, because I think it's a little different story than a lot of people. So at 17, I had the head and neck cancer, the adenoid. This type of cancer is very slow growing, so chemo was not an option. Radiation was the only thing. And so I got the maximum radiation I could. I missed my senior year of high school. And my parents didn't really tell me how bad it was until later after college when I got engaged. They asked if my husband or soon-to-be husband and I would go and meet with oncologists. So we did, and at that point I had found out that there was like 80% chance of dying. And then they advised us also not to have children until 27. So it's like a 10-year window before they'll reduce your chances of the cancer coming back. So I survived that and did fine, and I did good for a long time until probably my late 40s. Then I had thyroid cancer, which is caused often from radiation to the head and neck. And that's no big deal. I had both thyroids removed. But then I had, my husband is in radiology, so I never miss a mammo. And between 12 months of a mammo, I had cancer, breast cancer, ductal cancer, and it had left the duct. So it was very aggressive in 1 year. So I had a mastectomy, double mastectomy, and then a year later I had a hysterectomy just to be safe since it had left the duct. And once again, that one, they caught it, fairly early, and so they didn't suggest chemo. They would have suggested radiation, but I can't take any more radiation. So then the next was, I started not hearing well in my left ear, and I fly all the time for work, and so I thought it was just something related to work. But when I went into the doctor, they did a biopsy, and it turned out to be squamous cell growing from the inside of my ear out through my ear canal. And it was involved with my temporic membrane, meaning I lost my hearing, and it was involved with my mastoid. So that was like an 11.5-hour surgery. They grafted tissue and skin from my thigh to fill in all the spaces, and I have a fake ear, just a covered up hole. And but I survived that one, and then the other cancers I've had are all just skin related, just from the radiation that I received when I was 17. Adenoid is one of your glands, or adenoid is a gland in your salivary, well, I don't even know. I think it's an adenoid would be, you have them in your nose, you have them, a couple different places. But so the adenoids, I know they're in your lungs, because that's the fear, is the adenoid cystic carcinoma. You could get it in your lungs, you can get it in your esophagus, your mouth, your ear. So it's wherever those adenoids are, I guess. But mine in particular was of the salivary gland, or parotid gland, which is one of your salivary glands. It's not hereditary, but it is DNA driven. So we've done some genetic testing, and I definitely have messed up DNA. And so, each year they come out with new gene testing, genomic testing. So the most recent ones told me that I am a positive for ATM1 and PMS2, which means I'm at a high risk for breast, colon, pancreas, lung, esophageal, tracheal cancers. So, which is good in a way because now we know what to watch. So once a year I have a pancreatic scan, once a year I have an endoscopy and a colonoscopy. It just makes us more aware of what to look at. I think, I think the biggest thing I've learned from this is that, life is so short that you should never hesitate to keep up with all your doctor's appointments, because just because you're healthy and running around doesn't mean that there's something could potentially be going on. And the genomic testing is really specified. So, unless you have a family history, or it's not something you really do unless it's like my case where I've had 5 cancers, and the doctor says, that the radiation is going to cause the majority of my future cancers, and that we just need to keep on top of everything. And this ear thing was a perfect example. I wasted 3 months going to a audiologist that told me, I thought it was an ear infection. And I'm not angry, but it's just, I should have gone straight to my ENT oncologist and said, what do you think's going on here? Because as soon as I walked in, he knew, So, and I think a third thing, just to mention what I've learned, is that I really am kind of a snob about doctors. And I feel like I wish sometimes that people would really do their research and find, whether it's talking to people or joining a support group, but, go to the best doctor that, ask them how many times they've done this surgery. Ask them how many times they've seen this cancer, because I just think it makes a big difference. There is, but it's very small because there's only, on average, there's only about 1,300 people diagnosed annually with this type of cancer. So it's rare, and so there's not a whole lot of specialists. But it does provide for a support group. We're across the United States. It's an all-volunteer organization, but it does really give us some, that we can all, talk about docs and treatments and what works and what doesn't, and what side effects and what to expect. That's been a huge help. In that support group, I think we have about 250 members. That's it. And in that, they did a pool, and out of that, there's 3 of us that have survived the longest. So there's one woman who's lived 47 years, one's 45, and I'm 43. So I'm the 3rd longest living, and all 3 of us had the ACC at a young age. I think one was 25, 21, and I was 17. So, I feel like, I'm very blessed in that way, and I try to use that within the support group to, motivate or inspire other people that have just been diagnosed that, look, I've been around for 3 years and still kicking. So, so we all 3 of us, we keep in touch, and we try to go on to this support group and motivate others. Because the statistics you read are pretty scary. So, try to share that some of us do make it. Okay, so this type of cancer, like I said, is very slow growing. Approximately 1,300 people are diagnosed each year. Of those 1,300, 89% of the people will survive 5 years, Then when they hit 10 years, it goes down to 40%. It's a pretty tough, ugly, but slow cancer. So even if you're diagnosed and terminal, it could take 10 to 15 years. And there's a lot of side effects and problems along the way. So it's not like you have 10 years of good life. So it's a pretty tough thing. A lot of people, I was lucky, I've had several surgeries, and not that I look gorgeous, but I've gotten a better cheekbone on one side because of it. And, but a lot of people have their whole jaws removed, are missing teeth, are missing, parts of their tongue, have speech issues, have trachs, have feeding tubes because they can't swallow. Like I have my throat stretched every year during the endoscopy because I choke. Michael is panicking. My husband's panicking over me at least once a month, choking. So you just have to alter your lifestyle. Well, I guess what I'm saying is that so if something comes back again, I will probably go to one of the big guys, the MD Anderson, the Mayo, Sloan Kettering, places like that, because the local guys are great, but you can always go to these big names, get their advice, and get treated locally. And so that's what I'm kind of saying about being a snob, is that, I know there's some great local doctors, but I think that sometimes, people just go to their local family practice or then and maybe a specialist in their town, and sometimes it's better to utilize your resources of who's good and who's not. You can go online and research. A lot of them do have referral, or, like my cancer group has a listing by state of who specializes in that cancer. And they have some kind of criteria that allows them to be on that. Well, we don't have much of a choice. When you have cancer, that's one of the things, is I really feel like it's harder on the people around you than it is you, because you don't have a choice. You have to get up every day, and you just continue on, and you do the treatments. I've never, fortunately, been at the point of treatment or not treatment. I've always been very lucky in that realm. The big thing about being in this Unite group and having all these cancers is that, we have such a sisterhood, and I don't know, I've lived so long with the fear of cancer in the back of my, in the back of my brain, that I've came to a conclusion of three things. Number one, my faith is very strong in God, so I'm not fearful of death. I know, where I'm going, and so I'm not really worried about that. Of course, it's just greediness as to more time on this earth. But number two is that I've had a great life, and I'm so thankful for that, whether it be from my husband or from Unite and all the other things that have made my life so joyful. And then number three, I work in healthcare, and I see these 80 and 90 years olds. Their quality of life is not that great. So if I go a little early and don't have to have that quality of life, that's okay with me. So I think that's sort of, how I've learned to cope with it over the years, or the conclusions I've came to. I think, my parents were both very positive people, and I just always felt like I knew when I got the first cancer at 17, or when I found out later, that because there was a 10-year waiting time, you can't dwell on it. I would have to go first 6 months, then every year for checkups, and you can't sit and worry about it. So I just decided that I'm going to go on and enjoy life, and I will worry about it the week of the scan. And it just reminds you once again that, life is short and you need to enjoy every day. And so that's what's worked for me. Terrible. I would be in depression and anxiety, I mean, and that's what you have to kind of just throw off and just, you can't let it get you down, you know? It makes you sit down and say, oh, I'm really tired. I don't know if I want to meet the girls for dinner or a movie. And you just got to say, you know, look, we all don't know when our day is, so get out there and have some fun, you know? And that's how I've been. And my husband knows that too. He understands that, like, the week before a scan, I will start getting a little quiet. But other than that, I'm just enjoying life. I guess that, you know, that, you know, you can't let cancer get you down, that it's just a disease and we are stronger than that, and there's a faith, you know, a plan in place by whatever greater power you may believe in. And I think that, you know, that you have to just enjoy life and not dwell on the little things. So, you know, just keep it going. Well, I think, you know, we talked about, you know, how strong I am and you know, how I put this behind me all the time. And I think that that's the mindset that I had really raised myself from the age of 17, was that, you know, I only spoke to my parents and my husband about it. And there wasn't many people that I really talked a lot about the whole cancer and how I felt about it and how it could come back and blah, 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 blah. So I think, you know, I enjoyed attending with my husband, but then when it became real that, yeah, maybe I should join this group, it just kind of really scared me. Like, I have never opened up to anybody. And so I guess, I don't know, I just felt getting teary-eyed looking at all these women, and, you know, some that were, you know, losing hair, and almost all of them had ports, and it just made me upset and fearful, and I guess probably more anxious, but I knew it was the right thing, was to join Unite. It just, I don't know, I just kind of freaked out. But not for long, because I did turn around and join, and it's been a great experience, and I would recommend it to anyone. I guess just the fear that you truly have, and opening up to people about that. I had never done that. I only do it to my closest little circle. And so I think that's what scared me, was, and knowing, I mean, I knew the other girls were going through it too, but I guess it just, I've never had that kind of conversation with people. I don't, you know, like to really sit down. You know, you may say it casually in a doctor's office or something like that, but I think that's what scared me. Well, I discovered that I do need people, and how much better it made me feel, and that I can still be an inspiration or a supporter to other people in similar situations. And it just, like I said, it just, it really changed my whole cancer thinking, you know, in regards to communicating with others. I didn't have to take it all in myself. You know, now I feel like I have a whole group of sisterhood that I could easily, you know, call up and say, okay, I've got to go for a scan. Who can come with me? And I guarantee you someone would come. And that's not something I had before. I mean, I did. It was always my parents or my husband. And, you know, it's just nice to have it, you know, a whole new set of friends that you can do that with, and they can relate. They can actually relate more than my husband and my parents, you know, because they've been there too. I'd say take that leap. Take it. It's worth it. Everything that I went through in Unite, you know, each little part did something. Like, to me, it was the retreat that really made me turn the corner. You know, I met new people, and we started chatting, and then from, there, we went to chapel, I just found it very moving, and then from there we started texting each other, and then we started meeting for lunch and meeting for dinner, and that's what kind of, that every little part of the Unite, the art thing, I mean, it grew a whole group of friends that we can all relate to each other, and we'll be friends for life. In many ways, they're better friends to me than some of my oldest friends, because we just have so much in common. You started out with the candle pass, which was, just understanding where everybody comes from, and you gain a respect for everyone. And then you move on to your retreat and other things, but then you get your hair and makeup done twice, and that just boosts you up. And you're constantly going to the runway training, which just, is where you build your friends, you build your confidence, and then you finish off with this wonderful runway that was, and we were all there by each other's side, and it was just one of the best nights of my life. It was a lot of fun.